When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
All right, hello YouTube. Welcome back to the Grease Comedy YouTube channel. And today we're going to be doing day 12 of the 25 days of Winds of Winter. I'm going to be building off of last video. So last video we talked about Val, and I mentioned Tormund quite a bit in that video because I did think Tormund was very relevant to Val's plotline. And Tormund, very much like in the show, I think especially in this period, you know, post like season 5, where Winds of Winter would kind of be following the TV show, or I guess the TV show was trying to follow the books, but not really. Tormund, I think, was one of those characters that they did pretty much right. He kind of fades out as the show goes on, which makes sense. The cast just started all combining, and he just kind of gets left to the wayside. I almost think the same is kind of similar with the book. And very similar to the way we saw in the show, I do think Tormund will be kind of the key to this rallying support behind Jon. You think about, you know, what he's done for them. He was willing to stick his neck out to get them through the wall. He would have been the only person really that I think would have been able to do that, and he died for them. And I think Val is going to be a key, you know, point of bringing that information to them, rallying the wildlings behind Jon. You also have to remember the wildlings were already rallying for Jon to begin with because of the pink letter. Differently than in the show, the pink letter doesn't really even appear. Like, they try to do it. It's not really the same thing. But in the book, I guess the tipping point is, right, Jon's going to leave the wall. He's going to go with the wildlings, whoever else will support him, to go south to deal with Ramsay Bolton. He announces that publicly, and that gets him killed. Now, I think there was more to it than that. I think his fate was kind of already sealed. That was just kind of like the last domino to fall. But we see that going on. So I think Tormund is pretty much going to be somebody that's going to come in with the wildlings. He's going to be somebody that's going to be basically having this conflict with not only the Watch, but also the Queensmen. You got to remember that Selyse Florent is still here at Castle Black with Melisandre, with Shireen. The wildlings could very easily take over control of Castle Black, something that all of the Night's Watchmen basically feared. But because they've turned on Jon, I think you could see it from, if you're a wildling person and you're sitting here going, okay, Jon Snow, the Lord Commander that we just got introduced to, he's the person that let us go through the wall, and maybe we don't trust him, maybe we don't like him, but at least he was willing to reach out his arm to try and bring the two sides together. So you see him get instantly killed, and you're going to see probably a faction of Bowen Marsh and some of the others take control of the Watch. That's going to instantly set up some flags and put those two at odds. And the wildlings just control way more manpower, way more men, and Tormund will definitely use that. And so I think Tormund will be vital to the Jon Snow plotline going forward. The thing with that plotline is we really only have one POV that could possibly take over the story for Jon's plotline at the beginning, which is going to be Melisandre. I believe George specifically introduced her in A Dance with Dragons because of that, because when Jon dies, there wouldn't be any other POV there unless he made a new POV. Because again, Samwell's at Old Town, Bran's still north of the wall, Asha and Theon are with Stannis still, so they're not at the wall. So you needed somebody to kind of take that next step. And so we'll see probably Tormund through Melisandre's eyes, and we'll see, as I think he will be a person that will be basically with Jon when he comes back. I think he will be very similar to the way he was in the show, where he's like a general or major advisor for Jon. The two seem to also have a very good relationship, but all of that's going to lead them south. Now, the one thing that I find kind of fascinating here is, what does Stannis do with, you know, Tormund and that support there? And we also have to remember the pink letter is an interesting theory that I'm not going to get fully into because I could do a whole 15-20 minute video on just one person who I think could do it. I, as time has gone on, have been more and more influenced on Mance writing the pink letter. There's a lot of information in there that seems to point to possibly being him. I really think there's only two possibilities. I think it really is Mance or Ramsay. And, you know, I really don't have any problem if you believe one or the other. I honestly don't have a problem if you believe some of the other theories either. I just don't think they're as likely based on the information we know. And so if Mance is the person, you know, that's bringing the wildlings and manipulating Jon to bring them south, it's going to be interesting to see how that all goes down. You know, if Stannis, you know, realizes that Mance is still alive, how that impacts his relationship with Melisandre. You think about how he's going to view the wildlings as a whole. They're a group of people really that kind of took over Castle Black for a time when Jon is dead. I think Stannis will understand it because, again, his men, or not his men, but Jon's men betrayed him, killed him. That was not something that's treason, more or less. You could be hanged and killed for those things, which I think Stannis is someone that would do that. And so I think that Stannis wouldn't have too big of a problem as long as Jon allies with him, right? As long as Jon's not being antagonistic force towards Stannis, because that's what Stannis originally wanted. He wanted the wildlings to be on his side. So if he can get the wildlings at least behind him, even if that is through Jon, I think he'd be quite happy with that. Because again, it's hard to really talk about all these different plot lines because this video would be 30 minutes long, but I do believe Stannis will eventually win the battle for Winterfell. I think he will die by the end of Winds of Winter fighting the others. If that maybe gets pushed to the next book, kind of how Dance with Dragons had to push the Battle of Ice and the Battle of Fire to Winds of Winter, maybe he dies at the very beginning of a dream. He could even be, the very beginning of Dream of Spring. That could also be something I haven't really thought about too much. I've always thought the natural epilogue for the story would be Stannis fighting the others in this last kind of battle. Kind of similar to, if you think about the Fist of the First Men, something like that maybe, but through Stannis' eyes. Or you maybe save that till Dream of Spring. Maybe it's the first chapter of that. So we have maybe this time between the wall coming down and then also this big battle. I would hate that personally. I mean, I wouldn't hate it, but I would rather see it in Winds of Winter than have to maybe wait for Dream of Spring, which doesn't look like it's ever going to come out, unfortunately. And guys, I will be talking about that in the future. I know a couple of you guys have asked me about that. I just haven't gotten to it. Trying to focus on getting through this event and, getting through finals and all that stuff. But yeah, so getting to Tormund, getting back on track, I think his natural point of this is going to be between him and Val kind of being the heads of the wildlings. Now, Mance introduces an interesting wrinkle into that because Mance theoretically would actually be the true head of the wildlings. I just don't think he's going to survive this book, whether the Boltons, find him out and do kill him, or if Stannis finds him out. Remember, Stannis still wanted to kill Mance because he did break his vows. He is somebody that was not willing to bend his knee to Stannis. Stannis will still kill Mance. So I think Mance is doomed regardless. So I think Tormund kind of becomes the leader, kind of how he did in the show. I think it'll be a bit different because the show kind of just had, oh yeah, everybody's behind Tormund pretty quickly. I think it won't be as simple as that, but I think Tormund will have majority control over them, like we see him, how he's able to be the real negotiator with Jon Snow along with Val. And so I think Tormund, I don't think he has an incredibly large role in the story. I think the show did a really good job of having him, yes, be present in the show, but he was never really the main character. No matter what plotline he was even really in, even if you look at Jon Snow's plotline in season 6 or 5, he was definitely more of a side character that was just representing the wildlings. I think that's really what he's going to represent in the book. And you even think about the book where we don't have a lot of time to linger, I think, on a lot of these plot lines. I don't think we'll see a ton of him. I think we'll see more of him than Val, for instance, because Val is not going to be somebody that's going to be maybe at war councils and things like that, like Tormund will be. But yeah, I think that's where we kind of sit with Tormund. I think he's another integral part of the North. But I mean, if you think about all the characters that we have to do in the North, I mean, I've already talked about Barbary Dustin, already talked about Wyman Manderley, Val, Tormund, Mace, Howland Reed, Mage Mormont. There's just so many different characters in the North that I don't think we'll see a ton of him in general. I think he'll be much more of a front-loaded character. The first half of Winds of Winter, we see a lot more of him. And I think he might maybe not fade out of the story, but I think he'll fade in terms of prominence as the story kind of goes on. Maybe similar to like Bronn, where he's still a relevant character within the story, but definitely is not a large role in the story. But that is kind of what I think about Tormund for Winds of Winter. Let me know what you guys think. Kind of a shorter one today, but I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I'll see you guys all in the next one. Bye, guys.